No.
No?
Hi, everyone. We're going to start with the talk that would have been given by Dee, who's a sister who is with us at our house church in Croydon here, and she can't be with us, but she wrote out her talk. And I'd like to just introduce it a bit, though. Dee's a British lady who lives here in Croydon, of course. And I think my theme would be when I'm weak, then I'm strong. And I find this, that whenever I'm somewhat weak, then God seems to use me. And you might have had the same thing yourself. In weaknesses great and small. And this particular weakness began when Cindy and I were in Australia, as we go once a year. And I was we were visiting Mum and Dad and that. We were there some weeks, and so we took the kids to the local library. And we thought we could maybe join the library, get some books out. Well, we went in there, and give little people a little bit of power, and it's really difficult. And this librarian woman, she was just so difficult. Honestly, she was what Australians would say, like, up herself, really sunny, chronic. And Cindy was there talking to this woman, like, please could our children use your library? And this woman was like, oh. And I wasn't in the best mood spiritually. I really was not. And I was really frustrated. I said, come on, darling, let's just get out of here. And I don't know why Cindy was keeping on talking to this woman. And I got really frustrated, so I sort of stomped around the library, sort of not in a very good mood at all. And I picked up a newspaper, a free newspaper. It's called The Senior, for senior folks in Australia. And this conversation was going on, Cindy with this woman was going on and on, this argument about can our kids use the library? And she said, well, you're just visiting here. I said, but our kids have got Australian passports. Oh, really? Well, maybe... Yeah. So I was looking through this seniors newspaper, not yet of particular interest to me, but I was reading it. And a thought came to me, well, why don't we put an advert in this newspaper? Maybe these seniors might like a free Bible. So I got my cell phone out, and I sent an email to the advertising department, and I found on my phone I still had the advert that we used here, the Daily Mail. I said, look, here's an advert, this is what we want to put out, just change the address at the bottom to our address in Sydney. How much would that cost? And the guy got back to me within about 60 seconds, said it would cost you so much. So I forwarded this to John Thatcher, our treasurer there in Australia. And John also happened to be online, and he said, oh, sure, that's good, yeah, I'll make the transfer. So while this argument was going on, and I was really annoyed with this woman, I just wanted to get out of this library. And I was not, I wasn't sort of white-faced and perfect like I normally am, sort of praying and being so righteous and all the rest of it. Not at all, I was not in a good mood. Anyway, well, I finally persuaded Cindy to take the kids out of this library. And anyway, but the advert was placed. Got loads of replies from Australian seniors. Actually, nobody was baptised yet from all that. But some guy wrote and said, I don't want a Bible, but could you please send a Bible to a distant relative of mine near Croydon, in Surrey? In England. I said, yeah, sure. And so began this wonderful relationship with everyone's wonderful. I was going to say with a wonderful lady. I mean, you're all wonderful, but you know what I'm saying. With a wonderful lady who really was looking for exactly what we have to offer, and whose life has really been transformed by the gospel, and who, after a couple of years of contact with us, was baptised in our bathtub at the house church. And she would really have loved to have been here, and you would have loved to chat with her, but she's looking after her parents who are both in their 90s, and she can't get here. And so Sue is going to read the talk that Dee has prepared.
Well, these are Dee's own words, the feelings before and after baptism. Being part of an affluent family ensured that I had a good, sound biblical education as well as a privileged life. But this did not make me want more materialistically, rather the opposite, because I always gave away as much as I could and never wanted to be stuck up. I had been baptised as a baby, or christened, then confirmed later in the Church of England. Until the age of 8, I behaved like any other child. Then the abuse began, incest. And I felt as if my lights had gone out, my childhood gone. When this incest persisted and I was told that it was happening because I was loved so much, my ideas of love became confused. Now I had secrets that held the death threat. No one loved or cherished me because they were doing this to me. So I turned to God, all by myself, and began praying. I knew when the abuse would happen each time, so I'd pray, down on my knees, weeping because I could not bear the very thought of it. I begged God to remove me from there and to let me die. I did not know the difference to my thinking. I was by now around 10 years old. I did not know that it was not God who killed you. I did not realise that I had been born with a free mind, and it was my right to expect nurturing and care and love until I was grown up. The abuse dimmed my world, my views. All I knew was wrapped up in a world of control and corruption, and sordid and cruel incest. I also knew that God would not like the person, my father, for doing this to his own child or anyone else's child either, and believed at that time that he would punish father himself. When I grew up, I got married to get away from home. I didn't love him, and I didn't know the meaning of the word. So far, love meant manipulation, sexual exploitation for the gratification of one man, and so I went into marriage with a warped idea of men and their minds. I was also frigid, made so by the direct actions of a thoroughly despicable man, my father. I tried to do my best, but eventually the man I married probably got fed up and went elsewhere. That hurt me at the time, because I felt unclean, used, abused, and rejected. For a while I lived alone, attending church as a crutch. I did not like church or the people in it. They were hypocrites in every way, assuming a stance on church days, but ignoring me and anyone else during the other days of the week. During this time, I did take the Alpha course, and a little more of God and his kingdom became known to me. Now I knew that I was different, because not only did I feel as if I was in love, but I was attending Bible classes and mixing with seemingly like-minded people. The principles that are important to some people in their service to God seem to influence their thinking so much that the actual deeds and feelings of a love so pure, so amazing, defeats the object. For me, I had no particular principles as such. I just knew that I believed. I thought solely that the devil, for one, was what was inside people, while all that crossing of chests to indicate a trinity appeared meaningless to me, because I felt it was an absurd thing to do. I did not understand it, to be honest, and at this time, but just knew that the Catholics did it, and others, like my father, did it. And I came to the conclusion that I would keep my searching for the truth going, as I did not believe in doing it, as I only saw the people who did it as evil. Yes, even Catholic priests abused little boys, and just look what father had done to me. I felt alone and abandoned in my beliefs, but knew without a doubt that when I prayed to God, he answered me. Perhaps not straight away, but soon enough when I felt that I was ready, that he was there. And I always knew that it came in answer to a prayer. I never blamed God for the actions of my father, because I seemed to know without being told that it was a choice that my father made himself, not God, because God and Jesus were holy and they would punish father. It was not my right to judge, and anyway, God or Jesus would not ever do this to anyone. So far, I was now in my late 30s. I had certainly learnt a lot on my own about God and how he wanted us to be. But I did not know how I could fully engage with him without having to live my life in total isolation or similar. So far, the thought of putting Jesus first in my life had not happened, because I had been told by my parents that he didn't want this, etc. Amid tales of the devil. I now embarked upon the church thing again, and that day the vicar chose to talk about forgiveness. I absorbed every word and thought I was on my way to better relationships with people. But no, God had other plans for me, as I would find out. Suddenly, I lost my best friend, my second husband. Being a widow was very sorrowful and difficult. Then I arrived at my elderly parents' house to help them. The bereavement, plus my controlling parents, nearly made me ill. Until I met Duncan and Cindy, and they told me about baptism. I learnt so much that made perfect sense, and accorded with suspicions and ideas which had been forming in my mind over the years. Hell as the grave, not a place of torment, no Trinity or pre-existent Jesus, but rather Jesus as Son of God and Son of Man. No devil or demons out there, but rather human evil being the great adversary. I wish that I had been baptised earlier, because the change in my mind was complete. Now all the information I had about God and Jesus fitted in with genuine people, like-minded people. Now I could feel real love for humankind and help without being told I was soft. Now I could really understand the Bible, because I not only had Duncan's comments in the Bible, but Bible basics too. Now I could talk about God and Jesus to my heart's content without fear of ridicule. The best of all on the day of my baptism was that somehow, when I walked back into the house where my abuser sat, the person who refused to apologise or explain why he had done those things to me, the person who I faced daily, my feelings of bereavement which I seemed unable to shake off, and all the bad stuff that had happened in my life so far, all seemed to recede. Not forgotten, but seemingly unimportant. My mind felt the clean slate feeling. It seemed that I had a larger capacity to absorb information, as if my hard drive had been cleared out. Since my baptism, I have increased in my knowledge of God and his Son Jesus by reading the Bible daily, putting my Heavenly Father and his Son first in my life, giving my life up to them, for them to use in whatever way they thought best. I am free at last of all that horrible, self-destroying negativity and disgust at facing my abuser daily, free to enjoy life, and safe to love and trust everyone again. When finally God thinks I'm ready to move on as the carer of elderly parents, I know with certainty that he will have his plan ready for me for my next assignment. And I gladly open my heart in readiness for that day. Until then, I keep learning, listening to God and Jesus, and hoping one day to help other people. That's from D.